Welcome aboard, everybody. Freedom Link Radio here. This is Joe Joseph. Mike Powers is on assignment tonight. He'll be back again on Tuesday evening. Tonight, I am joined by Tisha Casida. She is an independent candidate for the 3rd Congressional District of Colorado and a lover of freedom and liberty. And I would like to welcome her to the show. Welcome aboard, Tisha.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with people.
Oh, no, the pleasure is all mine. And I'll tell you what, the listeners love to have somebody here that is like-minded to them. And you'll come to find out that Orion Talk Radio really we're a hotbed for liberty and freedom. So you're in a good place right now.
It's good to be among friends then.
Absolutely.
A safe place.
Absolutely. So, folks, I have Tisha on here tonight to talk to her about where she stands on the issues and also to go over and get her take on some current events. So this first hour will be kind of like a vetting process, if you will, where I'll ask her some questions and see how she responds to give you an idea. Now, here's a little tidbit of information for you folks. The last election in 2010, we saw quite a bit of turnover, right? Especially with the Tea Party movement gaining steam and everything else. And with that said, we still only had a 17% turnover. And that's just not enough. It's not enough today, and it's certainly not enough with all of the chaos we have in this country and the loss of our rights and liberties. And so it's refreshing to have a candidate like this come on the show that, first of all, is running as an independent. And right there, it says a lot about the character because it doesn't give you a bias. It doesn't insert a bias into what you have to do. I have to toe the party line in order to get my funding. Nope, not there. So it's good, Tisha, that you're doing that, but it really is an uphill battle, isn't it?
Absolutely. But anytime you try and do something that's absolutely right or absolutely for justice, it's always difficult. And it's a longer road. It's a marathon instead of a sprint. And our whole thing with our campaign is, in addition to doing something great so that I can hopefully represent Colorado's 3rd Congressional District, we're very focused on educating and empowering the people that we meet with, not only in our district, but across the country, and educating people so that they're critically thinking about these issues versus making decisions based off of emotion. And it is difficult, but I think that 2012 is a year that we're very, very ripe for independent candidates because it's becoming blatantly obvious that both parties are corrupt and both parties are basically causing problems amongst themselves just so that they can, have the smoke and mirrors to lead the American people on. And I'm tired of it. And it seems like most of the people that I talk to, regardless of what side of the political aisle that they're on, are in agreement with that.
That's fantastic. And I like to call the two major parties Republicrats, because if you ask me, they're both one and the same. We have Republicans that are supposed to be conservative, but how is it conservative to have 130 countries over 700 bases sprawled out all over the world? Let me ask you this. Now, you believe in a strong national defense, do you not? I think that's one of your platform talking points, right?
Absolutely.
Well, define that for me. What does that mean to you?
Well, we need to be able to protect the American people. That's one of the very few roles the federal government has. But that means protecting the American people here in our own country. I think it's very dangerous when you go into other countries and nation build, basically. And I have no appreciation for killing innocent people in order to create what we call democracy and freedom. I think it's very dangerous. And at the end of the day, we shouldn't want democracies across the world. We should want republics. But it's up to the people themselves to garnish that. And the best thing that we can do to foster peace is to have, a strong economy ourselves and really encourage free trade. That creates peace and that creates nations that are strong, not by infiltrating other countries with our own military. Now, it's different if there's, a cause for war, but I like the war on terrorism. That doesn't satisfy my requirements. You can't have a war on a concept or on a, you have to have a defined mission, a defined goal, and that's different. There's a place for war, and I understand that. But where we're currently at, I think it's very dangerous, and we're broke. We don't have any money. So why are we spending so much money, in these other places when we really need it here at home?
Amen to that. Amen to that. Now, here's another question. I was actually going to ask you a question when you said the word democracy. I was going to ask you, do we live in a democracy? But you stole the thunder from me. Because I was like, well, do we live in a democracy? Well, of course we do. Gotcha. But no.
Exactly.
Okay. So with that said, right? So we're not all about nation building, or we shouldn't be about nation building, but we are. And, of course, that's a conservative way of thought. Now, if you look back historically, I trace this back to Theodore Roosevelt, and there was one book that came out that totally shaped our foreign policy for the 20th century and into the 21st century, and that was Sea Power by Alfred Mahan. And in that, it was to project our power overseas to protect our national interests. So if say, for example, the pirates, the Somali pirates out there that are hijacking, all these tankers, and you may have a rogue nation that goes ahead. Let's just say Iran closes the Straits of Hormuz, and that puts a serious kink in our traffic to and from the Arabian Gulf. How would you go ahead and combat things like that if you don't have forward projected power?
Well, I believe that our military has some extremely sophisticated equipment and capabilities so that you could, work with other governments that are friendly without necessarily having an embassy or, having troops over there working together to combat something like that. I don't think it's necessary to, this is just, I don't know all the specifics of some of these things. And there's people much more educated that could answer a question like that probably better than I'm answering it. But I really believe that, our intelligence and our military are capable of protecting the American people with having our main forces right here in our own country. And so even if we're not, stationed in these other countries, if there were something that were threatening the American people, I believe that we have the forces and capability of attacking that so that it still protects us, regardless of, not being physically over there in the first place.
Wow. See, now that is, you're batting 1,000 so far. I just wanted you to know. It's absolutely true. It is. It's true. The technology these days, you have no need to have 700 bases thrown throughout the world. It's just stupid. And all we're doing when we put our troops overseas, here are these troops here that all they signed up for, really, when it all comes down to it, is the GI Bill. They just want to do their time, get out, go to school. Some of them do, and many of them make a career out of it, and that's all well and good. And I'm all for it because we need career people to go ahead and do that. But to be quite honest with you, our technology at this point is so advanced that there is no need for that. I mean, look at these drones that fly, and I'm not for it. Don't get me wrong, but we have the technology to be able to go and strike an enemy if that's the case without having a bunch of forward deployed forces or all these military bases throughout the world. So, I totally agree with you there. Now, as far as that's concerned, this leads into something that we'll go into after the break, and that's the debt, because I believe that all this nation building is really, truly bankrupting. So when we come back from break, folks, we'll get into that. We're going to get into the national debt and so much more with Tisha. You're listening to Freedom Link Radio on the Orion Talk Radio. Welcome back to Freedom Link Radio, folks. Sign up for new mailing list. You'll see it on the left-hand side of my show page, right next to the chat room. And you'll get up-to-date information on this show, also Down the Rabbit Hole, and a bunch of our alternative media affiliates. That way that you can stay up-to-date on the latest news and information that's important to you. And I got to be honest with you guys, Tisha dropped offline. I'm trying to get her back on right now. And we're also joined by the 2004 Libertarian Presidential candidate and Jedi Master of Freedom and Liberty, Michael Badnarik. Michael, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
It's a pleasure. A pleasure for sure. Hey, Tisha, you're back on too. Isn't that great? Look at this, the trifecta. No, that's good. Well, before the break, we were talking about the expansion or the projection of United States power, and we got her stance on that. And it kind of leads me into the debt, because the debt is near and dear to everybody's hearts right now. The economy's in the doldrums. I don't foresee it getting out of the doldrums anytime soon, especially with our current monetary policy in place. So a couple of questions for you on this, Tisha, would be what would you do to balance the budget if you were able to do that or in a position of power to do that? And how would you go about implementing that change?
Well, I believe that Ron Paul brought forth a pretty good plan of how to do that. And although I have not been able to read it in its entirety, that's something I would certainly stand behind. I think it's important that we look at a couple different factors, not only the amount of spending, especially frivolous spending with the amount of bureaucracy we have at the federal level. But in addition to that, we need to look at the Federal Reserve and what they're doing with our actual currency and the devaluation of it, which is causing inflation, which is basically bankrupting every American as we speak, regardless of party lines. So, long term, I think we really need to focus on that Federal Reserve and the monetary system at large. But, as far as a plan to balance the budget, I would have to, say something like what Ron Paul has brought forth is very sustainable. And, it does it through attrition. So it's not something,
Right. At the federal level, his plan would be to there would be no federal layoffs, I guess you could say, as far as the military's concerned and things like that. But he was talking about eliminating the Department of Education, and eliminating, I think it was the Department of Energy, Department of Agriculture. So it's very interesting to have a plan such as that, because it's very, very, very not over the top, I guess you could say, but it is unique in its nature. But Michael, those departments, those aren't outlined as far as the 18 enumerated powers of the Constitution, are they?
No, they are certainly not. The Constitution gives government limited privileges, and those privileges are listed in Article 1, Section 8. Anything the government is doing which is not explicitly listed in Article 1, Section 8 is by definition unconstitutional. And over the course of my research, I've discovered that most of what our government does is unconstitutional, and I find that just unconscionable and totally unacceptable. The Constitution only identifies 3 crimes: treason, piracy, and counterfeiting. Murder is not listed in the Constitution because that's at a state level. So of these 3 crimes, counterfeiting is one of the things that the government has a responsibility to try to, punish. Got to stop the counterfeiting and punish the people who do. Well, in 1913, Congress pretended to give that power of counterfeiting to the Federal Reserve,
yes,
which is completely, totally, 100% unconstitutional, and people are starting to become aware of it.
Well, and this leads into my next question. The Federal Reserve is a counterfeiting activity.